It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. This is Freeman Michaels.
Here with Barnet Bain. I thank you all for joining us again. It's great to be back here with you week after week. I never, ever take it for granted. It's going to be a great day for us here.
It's a gift.
Yeah, it's always a gift.
So how you doing post-Wives show?
Man, I really enjoyed that show.
Yeah, it's working me, though. If I tell you the truth, it's working me.
It is working me. You know what happened? I'll give you some direct fallout.
Tell me.
So we went home, and we're driving in the car,
Yeah.
and Sandy says, for those of our listeners who you can still pick up the podcast, but who didn't, were to tune last week, we had our wives on, and we talked about sex and marriage, and we're talking about very long-standing marriages. My marriage with Sandy, 33 years. Freeman, was it 12?
Yep.
So we're driving home, and we say, let's redouble our commitment to we're going to have sex tonight. Great. What seemed like what a great idea at the time. So we get home, and we go through the day, and it's like bedtime, and suddenly, she's like stiff and she's sleepy, and maybe we can do it tomorrow. And I secretly am going, I'm really that's fine with me, but I don't play it like that.
Right, of course not.
I play it like, oh, really? Well, okay.
Oh,
I will cut you some
number.
slack. So I realize there is this incredibly passive-aggressive thing that I do where I didn't just come out and say, that's fine, because really I'm not in the mood tonight either. I made it so I could keep score.
Yeah.
I had a chit that I could redeem some other place, some other arena of my life. A lot came out, and then I realized just how much I do that. I do that elsewhere, and where else do I do that? It's kind of been a stealth strategy for dealing with life. It's not very attractive now that I notice it, and it's not so easy. I've noticed all week long. It's not so easy, mercifully, to do it without. I can smell it now, and
Yes.
it's sort of rank.
Well, okay, so this is hysterical because on the drive home, Jazz and I, because my wife and I committed to this kissing practice with the intention of really exploring passion. Our practices from last year, while they were beautiful, my wife made that comment that they felt kind of heady, like it was conceptual. And we were doing it, and we were getting great benefit, but she wanted more passion and more flow, less gripped, less held. And so we committed to a kissing practice. Lo and behold, first on the drive home, we kind of played the opposite. Jasmine said our relationship's going so well, we rarely get into those fights that last a long time. We rarely hold our position. We're so willing to see things dimensionally.
Well, it went well all the way to the 405.
So no, we did. We flipped. We totally got petty, and we started to bicker, and it was so interesting. And then my wife developed some kind of canker sore or something in her mouth, and she's like, oh, no, I can't kiss. And so your story is mirrored in my experience, and it's so interesting. But now here's one of the challenges. The challenge is, and you and I have talked about this, where we've developed a process, a way of processing, and it's been incredibly helpful in our lives to have these tools and this framework for how to hold things and move through things and so forth. And so
how to understand and acknowledge and own what parts of ourselves are triggered and for what reasons and how to respond to them.
Yes, but what we both have come to understand is there's a point at which that itself, the process itself, can become a distraction.
Yes, it becomes a noble hiding place. Because it's conscious enough to make a decision. And, you're in the car, you made a decision, and your decision was similar to mine. Jazz is resistant, and I'm going to let her carry her weight of resistance and mine too.
That's
and
right.
I'm going to pretend it's all her.
Right.
She's doing all the heavy lifting in the car, and
right.
I did that with Sandy.
All right, so one of the things that we've both committed to this year is following frequencies, letting go of some of our patterns when it comes to even processing, because, you know, the whole thing Jasmine was bringing up is the process becomes a head trip. The process is a way that we come out of the engagement. And I know what it's about. I mean, for me, it's about control, right? It's about, you know, if it's a head trip, I feel like I control it, I can line it up and so forth and so on. But the work this year for me, and I know this is true for you, is loosening the grip and allowing
to make
for more
principled choices that are off the zone of familiarity, the reservation that we call it. That are out of our comfort zone, that are made as we make new fundamental choices, and that we are courageous enough to make them and to live into them, even though they are inconsistent with our habits. But those habits are increasingly not pretty.
Well, they top out. You know, there's only so much juice I can squeeze out of that lemon, right? There's only so far it's going to take me. Hey, I think we should bring our guest into this.
Well, speaking of juice, I mean, there's no better segue into introducing our guest than juice, because we have a absolutely succulent guest on with us today. We are very pleased to welcome SARK, also known as Susan Ariel Rainbow Kennedy, who is the author of 16.
Wow. Amazing books.
That's a lot of books.
Yeah.
She's author of a library, a public library,
That's right.
Full of books, including Succulent Wild Woman, Bodacious Book of Succulents, and Eat Mangoes Naked. I am always up for eating mangoes naked. Guess. And even maybe I'll do that tonight unless I can make it somebody else's idea. Her newest book is Glad No Matter What, Transforming Loss and Change into Gift and Opportunity. And we are very, very grateful to have her joining us here today on Cutting Edge Consciousness.
SARK, welcome.
Oh, my God. I am just swooning out of my chaise lounge.
Oh.
You're at a chaise lounge. I love that.
See, this is a woman who does her interviews from a chaise lounge.
This is a juicy woman. She's up there in Northern California in a chaise lounge.
Yeah. We're in uncomfortable studio chairs, but it's okay. Enjoy.
Without a window. We're not complaining because we have you.
Well, I'm looking at the San Francisco Bay.
Oh, it gets even better.
Oh, my good. Where are you? Are you in Marin?
I'm in San Francisco on Telegraph Hill.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's my old stomping ground. I grew up in the Avenues on the Richmond District side of the park. Yeah.
Well, how is it to be juicy and succulent today?
Well, it's fabulous, and I want to make sure everyone knows that. Or I want to add to the conversation about the, experiencing the opposites of that and being willing to look at patterns. I just said to my lover, I had been kind of controlling and crazed right before we were doing laundry and filling out a refi application, and I'd gotten very crabby, and I was kind of bossy, and then I cut him off, and I said, I need to go do this show now.
Yeah, so there. It was his fault.
We got to get him on the line. Let's get really juicy.
Well, and this is really exciting, you guys, because I married myself in 1997 and promised to never leave me. I wrote about it in that book, Succulent Wild Woman. So I've been primarily single and really focused on self-love and learning about myself. And I met him 5 months ago, and a month after meeting, we moved in together, and I've never lived with a lover or a partner.
Wow.
So there are all of these, not less than, but lesser aspects, younger, different, less mature, less seasoned, who are all, some of them I'm sure are thrilled, and some of them I'm sure are in downright rebellion, hysterical. What are you bringing strange people into the house for?
Yeah, one of them tried to climb out the window the other night. I had a whole strategy. I was going to use the ladder and go up over the roof so I didn't have to see him.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
Well, this is beautiful because, again, on the heels of the Wives Show, and the principle of there's no principle. The idea of the Wives Show is that we were talking about layers and layers of self-revealing and revealing to each other and creating a space between us. The space between us, and Barnett and I talk about this all the time, is what we want to fill, right? It's a generous space. It's an offer that we can create the space between us, sometimes via intention or vision. There's something we're putting into it. And everything's welcome there. And that's kind of, I guess, where I want to transition to, because all of this comes from a self-awareness that goes deep and then deeper and then deeper. And there's these constant layers of exploration into what can be quite a tricky journey. And I know that you've taken that journey inward again and again and again. And I love the idea that now 5 months ago you said, okay, let's go deeper. Right?
Yeah, and it's so funny, you guys, because I thought you actually were calling it I thought you were saying the Wise Show, WISE.
Same thing.
Oh my gosh. Well, we got the wisdom teachers, my wife and his wife. So yeah, probably.
I don't think they would quibble with that.
I know. And, it's funny because, this partner, this incredible partner I have now, is a metaphysical teacher and a psychologist and a lot of wisdom on board and a lot of, there's so much juice to him. He's a succulent wild man for sure. And so I can't run my games. I can't crush him. I mean, I could crush him, but then it would be very sad. But, I can't, I'm not getting away with the stuff I got away with. And some of that is really good. And as you pointed out, some of it is incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah, but we're investing in the space between us. That I think, I just want to come back to that because, again, when Barnett and I, in the very beginning of this segment, we're kind of exposing how, the first thing out of our mouth is a creating of a space between us that Barnett was saying, let's have more sex in our marriage, and Jasmine and I are saying, great, we by the way have a sex practice. That doesn't sound right coming out of my my mouth, but we have a commitment to a kind of sexual interaction that we practice. There we go. I said it better. But we decided the kissing was what we were moving towards because we wanted to develop more passion that could happen 12 times a day versus well, maybe we could have sex 12 times a day, but that would be exhausting. So we just thought kissing might be a way to amp up the passion. The point being the space between us, the positive intent that's going to, we know, probably turn us inside out, right?
Yes. And what a wonderful thing. I mean, let's be turned inside out.
Let's welcome it.
Yeah.
Well, there's this very delicate and beautiful balance that has to do with your intention around that practice, whether it's kissing or any other practice. It has to do with knowing where you're coming from with it. Am I coming with a earnest, vulnerable willingness to participate 100% all in, or am I coming from a place that says I don't really want to do this, and not really, but so where am I coming from? Balanced with where am I going with this?
Where am I
aiming for?
Yeah.
Am I aiming? I'm a surfer, and you always look down the line, and if you don't look down the line, it usually ends up badly. But so you look way down, not where you are, but where you will be, and I think that sense of vision in any practice, in anything. Where am I coming from, and where do I want to go? And to hold those in this equipoise and this delicate balance is delicious. It creates an energy. It is a creative frequency. It is a womb of creativity. We become pregnant with possibility.
Yes, and thank you for equipoise, too.
You got to pay extra for that one.
Equipoise, that's a $2 word.
That's at least $1.50.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
telling
actually,
you.
I think that's a really good cappuccino, a blue bottle from you next time I'm in San Francisco.
He's lining them up. That's great.
Not that I'm keeping score.
There's another little nasty pattern, the keeping score, but we're not going to talk about that right now.
Maybe we'll loop around to it.
Okay.
Maybe we'll loop around to it. So you are a creative artist. You have said that you view art as life and life as art. And you've also said, famously, at least in my house, that if you create and do it badly, it still works.
Yes.
So I would invite you to unpack a little bit of that for our listeners.
Oh, creating and doing it badly.
Yeah, I'm a virtuoso at that.
Well,
Now, notice she didn't say if you create and do it half-assed. She said
You got to go for it all the way.
you got to go full ass.
Yeah, but you may smack into the wall.
well, I want to talk. Actually, it came from a fantastic mentor of mine who wrote a book called "You're Not Old Until You're 90." Best to be prepared, however.
Who is that?
Her name is Rebecca Latimer, and she died at 94, and she asked me to be one of her death witnesses, which I did, and
Wow.
I wrote about it. It's incredible.
Wow.
But she said, "Oh, SARK, when you meet with these people and you're with all these groups, would you please tell them that they meditate and do it badly, it still works?" And then she said, "Oh, by the way, that goes for everything else too."
I love that. Hey, listen, I got an idea. We got to take a quick break because we have to pay some bills.
We're going to come back. We're going to get succulent right away.
And get succulent, especially in the realm of creativity. Let's wiggle around in there. But we're going to take a quick break, come back, get creative, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Barnet Bain. I'm here with Freeman Michaels and our guest, SARK, who is live from San Francisco on her chaise lounge. So you had
with her handheld
with her
phone.
handheld phone. You had something to say about your handheld phone.
So
You perked up
look,
about
during
that.
the break, we were just chatting because we have a little time between commercials, and you were saying, do you wear a headset? And Susan, you were saying, no, I like a handheld phone. And the image that grabbed me was being in high school, and we're all of an age where we were still holding phones back then, and
I was tapping a Morse code key.
yeah, that's right. Barnett was back in the Stone Age, chiseling tablets to have run on elephants to his girlfriend.
Hieroglyphs.
That's right. But the what I love about that, and it's interesting because we're about to talk about creativity, is that I remember the joy and the fun and how. Like when you were on the phone with your friends or with a girl, in my case with a girl, and how great it was and how succulent it was. That spirit.
You whipped up a vibe.
Yeah. So I wonder, as we wander into this conversation about creativity, how certain again we're talking. We briefly kind of touched on the idea it's a frequency game, that there's a thread that we're following. And Barnett, you and I have talked about this too. We get glimpses in our life. It's not mature maybe the first time we touch it, but we know we want more of it, right? The sort of, again, that
peak moment.
And that fun and that vibratory quality of connecting and having a phone, which at some point becomes like the greatest instrument in the world when you're 14, 15, whatever. And the fun of that. And I love the chaise lounge and the entire environment around this. I'm going to call it a ritual. I hope that doesn't step on the way you treat it, but that's how I would sort of hold it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Well, I love ritual in that way. I love very irreverent ritual.
I'm an irreverent ritual.
Yes, that live from San Francisco you heard. Well, you are skillful in relating to your environment through lenses of meaning and metaphor, and I know that you are deliberate about choosing the meanings of what you experience. There's a story that you tell about walking down the street one day and seeing a big square in the cement. You want to say more about that? Because what I'm pointing to here is the creative power and the higher power of literally lucid dreaming that we begin to activate when we become responsible for the meanings and the metaphors, the symbols that we assign and to the experiences of our life and how we relate to them. And they're constantly changing.
Yeah, and responsive too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, tell the story first.
Yeah, well, walking up a steep hill in San Francisco many years ago, finding etched into the cement, succulent is powerful. And I said, yes, it is. And I jumped in the square, and I put my arms up in the air and said, I am a succulent wild woman, and I'm going to write about that.
I love
Nobody even looked, because San Francisco.
Well, no, and then I collapsed on the ground in terror.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, how would I even do that? I can't say this, I can't say that. How am I going to write about all this, and what about that? And I just went into a complete freak out.
Mm.
And then I, did my irreverent rituals and allowed the parts of me that were ready, had been waiting for me to be ready to do this, and really asked, I call it my inner wise self, but really called on that part of me that's so wise beyond human, and said, help me do this. And then pages filled, and then Succulent Wild Woman came out, and and then so many things happened from there, and so many succulent wild women and men appeared, and I continued. I liked what you said. I believe that I creatively commune with the world, and the world with me. So the world is always bringing me. People are always asking me, what inspires you? And I always just get astonished by that question, because I feel like, what doesn't inspire you? How can you even ask that?
Yeah.
And I just feel like everywhere we go, I was just at the DMV the other day, and this little boy, this mother's dragging this little boy along. Come on, hurry up! And there was this shaft of sunlight, and he just stopped short at the sunlight, like he wouldn't move. And his little tennis shoes were just lined up at the line of the shaft of sunlight on this linoleum floor. And his mother's, trying to drag. And he says, "No, but Mama, this is where this is the light that God gets in, and then it touches everyone else who goes by."
So as a poet,
Wow.
as an artist, as a writer, as a metaphysician, how do you personalize that? What was the meaning of that experience
Well, the meaning
for you?
for me was the incredible reminder of the beauty and grace that's around us all the time in every environment, if we will only look and if we only want to notice it, and it's just waiting there to be noticed. And then I watched as everyone going through the light was, seemed to be touched and transformed in some way. And the very next person to go through the light and stop in the shaft of light was a guy in a wheelchair who was very discombobulated, and he had all these plastic bags, and things were falling, and he was muttering, and he seemed like he was not having the easiest time. And then I was just staring at him in the light, wondering what else would happen. And then he extracts this broken black plastic comb and starts laboriously combing his hair. And I realized what he was doing. He was combing his hair for his photo.
Oh, that's great.
And I just started weeping, because that the tenderness of that was so touching to me.
All right, I am struck right now, and I'll tell you what I'm struck by. We all three share our own, I'm going to call it fragmented past experiences, right? The parts of our lives that were really challenging. And the initial filtering process or interpretive process was a hand-me-down interpretation. It was a way that we experienced our world that held our experiences in a particular way, maybe with a lot of judgment or shame or whatever, right? That's sort of how it was held. And we've all worked through that to whatever degree we worked through it. But what I'm loving about you and your work is the filter the lens through which you're viewing things. And Barnet called you a poet. And what I love about the poet is you're not wanting to be a poet. You've tapped into a way of perceiving and interpreting your world that's poetic. And then the poetry comes from everywhere. It comes from a little boy in the middle of the DMV.
Yeah.
Right? And yet I also love, and I just want to layer this in, that sometimes the small self, the part of us that's still healing the fragmented aspects of our experience, needs irreverent ritual to just get it beyond that so we can play in this bigger field.
Yes.
That, to me, is what I'm struck by. I mean, that's the part right now. And I also love something else you say. I'm just loading them in right now. When you said, and I was wondering, that space to wonder, that pause to allow for something to unfold. Barnet and I have talked about, the dreamer in our culture has sort of been, oh, the dream. Oh, he's a dreamer. It's a critical thing. Like, oh, yeah, you're just a dreamer. And in creating the space for wandering and wondering, we call it the sacred I don't know, right? So I love that moment of like, and then I was wondering. And then the filter comes in and says, I can see it. But you're seeing it from a vantage point, a viewpoint of a poet.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way to approach life. And it's again, we talked about that space that creates, the space between you and others and things. That's a very generous and generative space that you're creating.
So I want to ask you, Sark, about the design of your filter, of the design of the lenses through which you are meeting the world and looking at the world and choosing to relate to things that go on and bending them to your own desire and expectation. Some of the ingredients of that, I presume, have to do with listening to that inner voice, that relationship.
Yes.
And the expectation of miracles and desire and the intimacy with your imagination. What else?
Willingness. A willingness to possibly be uncomfortable or see things that aren't commonly thought of as beautiful or desirable.
Mm-hmm. I want to layer in courage, because that takes a lot of courage.
Oh, yeah.
Which, of course, comes from the French word cœur, which means heart, right? It takes a lot of heart. You got to be willing to show up and maybe take some, there might be some trickiness, some sadness, or who knows what's going to get weaved into that vantage point. Yeah.
Well, I love, and I think adventure. I love the adventure of it. Mm-hmm. I feel like it could go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, the antithesis of this, I mean, you're describing to me the hallmarks of a creative life. And the antithesis...
She's created her own planet.
She's got her own planet, which we're going to thread back. We're going to thread back to this planet in 1 sec. But what's the buzzkill for this relationship between an artist and creativity? What is the surest way to shut it down?
Oh, well, I'm going to tell you something. It's so great, because just yesterday my partner, John, came up with this great acronym for the buzzkill. And the acronym is also a great word. The word is CRAP.
Crap.
Yeah, and
we have a title for our show. It's
CRAP. Creativity Reduction Acceleration Process.
Oh, no, this is fantastic.
That's fantastic.
I know.
God bless you, John.
I know.
I knew he had to be in this show. He's in.
Oh, my God. You would love to have him on. He is like a walking heart.
Oh, that's beautiful. But
why don't we have you both on?
That's what we need to do. Next time you're both in Los Angeles is what we need to do.
Give us a heads up and we'll schedule you in studio, both of you.
He has family there, so we're coming down.
Oh, fantastic. We may not be able to get Shays Lounges into the studio. The management may or may not go for that. So but that's all right.
Are you staying over there? What are you eating? Well, what do they cook when you're over there? We'll decide whether...
we may come to their house. That's hysterical.
We may do a remote.
It's so funny because we're teaching this weekend for the first time together on miraculous relationships.
I love
it. Say a little bit about that curriculum.
Well, the curriculum is, we're calling it 3 things. Seeing your partner as perfect, not compromising, finding joyful solutions instead, finding creative and joyful solutions. This is how he got me into all this. I never would have lived with him in a million years.
It was working pretty good for him.
It worked incredibly well. He had this incredible marriage, and she died, and it's the only reason he was there for me to meet. And then knowing your boundaries and using them, knowing the differences and cherishing those, and not feeling like you have to merge all the time and do everything. And so the relationship with him has been one of the most creative and generative things of my entire life. And I am so astounded by love.
That's beautiful. That is so succulent.
And he has a passport to planet SARK.
Well, yeah.
He's got a visiting visa.
Yeah, well, one of the things he said to me when we met on a cruise ship in Alaska on an Abraham cruise. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, I was married for 10 years. The honeymoon never ended. And he said, I just want you to know I'm qualified to adore you.
Oh,
That's great. Pre-qualified.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And then I didn't know that I was also qualified to adore him at that time.
You know, it's so crazy because the whole analogy that life is really the whole refinancing and laundry story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whether we set that or not, we're talking about pre-qualified, and then it's just funny, you know. We're like, who knew? Like, we're really just talking about laundry and refinancing. I mean, the story. Barnett and I go to coffee before the show, and we laugh because whatever conversation we're having there, we're having here.
Yeah.
It's like at some point the compartments get blurred, and we live in this fluidness, this flow, you know, based on the space we're able to create. Right? Again, it does come back, at least from my perspective, about how much I'm willing to hold possibility in between me and Barnett, in between Barnett and I and our guest. I mean, so how am I willing to really align things where there's again things? Every time we pre-plan the show, it's junk. I'm serious.
I know. Every time I tried to pre-plan a book, it was junk. Every book has been that same conversation, that same serendipitous swirl, that same.
That's it.
Poetic engagement, that same. I mean, I got so excited. I texted my friend and I said, "You would love these." I said, "I'm about to do a radio show, no topic, all flow."
Yeah.
Because I knew that she would completely understand what that was.
Yeah, and this is what we've been talking about, Barnett. I mean, what we've really set up. Now we'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing. So we're creating a whole prosperity curriculum, prosperity, abundance, bounty. And again, you know, one of the things is we recognize it as our own edge. This show is the edge of possibility, that we want to play at the edge of possibility.
And it's personal.
And it's personal. Make everything personal, you know? We love our friend Don Miguel Ruiz, and he says the second agreement is take nothing personal. We actually had him on the show. We're saying until you get to the point where you take everything personal.
We take it all personally.
But I mean, it's an evolution. I mean, developmentally, that's great advice. And then at some point, you go, oh, wait a minute.
I think Donovan said it first, right? First there is no mountain, and then there is. And then there's no mountain.
Yes. Yes.
So right now, we take it all personally.
Let's get folks over to this. Now, what's coming to L.A., you're going to actually teach it here in L.A.?
Well, who knows what will happen. We're doing a live stream video deal.
Okay, got it.
For our first time out. So I'm sure we're going to do some destination vacation stuff. You know, we want to go to Bali. We want to take some people on some succulent, juicy adventures.
Some succulent, sweaty, juicy.
Yeah, Barnett just came back from Bali. He was there 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I just dried off.
So let's get people over to your website, and I know your Facebook community is also a beautiful place to reach you and what you're doing, so they can tap in.
Oh yeah, and I read everything, and I respond, and you know,
We're going to write you later. This is going to be a test.
PlanetSark.com.
PlanetSark.com. Oh my goodness!
And the relationship online event is scheduled for when?
It's actually happening already. It's happening tomorrow, Saturday.
So you better be quick, folks.
Yeah, you got to be quick. It's called Party with SARK, and it's 3 hours. Succulent self-love, making your creative dreams real, and miraculous relationships. It's 3 hours, and I've got 3 other teachers besides myself, John and I, and my business partner, Dory, who's fantastic, and Edward Vilga, who's beyond, and his chocolate Labrador Belle, who's a traditional love master teacher.
The love master teacher.
If you can't get love from a chocolate Labrador, you better check your pulse.
That's it. Well, right now, this Love Fest has to take a break. We are going to say goodbye to you, Sark, with the hopes of having you next time in studio with John.
Live and succulent.
Yep. And
yeah, you got it.
All right, and we invite you all to stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
We're over the edge today. Welcome back. That was fantastic. Our amazing conversation with Sark. Freeman Michaels here with my partner, Barnett Bain. It's succulent. Relating to the world is succulent. Relating to the world from a succulent perspective. Looking for the juice.
What's great about succulents, I have a few really ancient succulents in my yard. And they are always moist. They're always juicy. They're always sort of spongy.
I love it.
And they accumulate water from the inside out, because they can go for months without any water. And we live in Southern California; it's virtually a desert where we are. So it is such a great metaphor for what happens in life as an inside job. These things are evergreen and juicy from the inside out, not from the
so
outside
wise. I love that, Barnett. That's fantastic. I also love the not wanting to be a poet, but being a poet and having that perspective. And then, and then poetry arrives in any form, in any place, imaginable. The DMV, some kid pops out with just a absolute stroke of brilliance, about this shaft of light and what its meaning is. I mean, that's fantastic.
Well, let's drop that down an octave or raise it up an octave. We are all poets 100% of the time. It is, for the most part, fully unconscious.
Right.
But we have experiences in life, and then we assign meanings to them, or they are metaphors, and we think, well, that reminds me of something, and then we assign meanings, and the meanings usually thread back to experiences from our past, more so than what can be in the future. But everything is an experience that triggers feelings and thoughts and story.
Yeah.
And when we become more increasingly aware of that, we can begin to choose, as SARK does, what we're experiencing. Well, that reminds me of something, and it's sort of a metaphor for something else, and we can begin to become very playful with
the narrative,
with moving through it. It's the equivalent of moving lucidly through a night dream.
Yeah.
We're not going to say necessarily that we are moving through a waking reality that is a dream, but we're also not going to say that it ain't so either. Who knows? Maybe it is.
It's the narrative, the way that we frame it and hold it and generate it. I mean, this whole thing is very exciting to me because there are qualities in my experience, these little glimpses, moments in time where I touched something and I went, oh, I love it. You and I were speaking about this, that we have these moments, naive moments, innocent moments, where we wandered into something brilliant, didn't know how we got there, splashed around in it for some amount of time, and then didn't have the capacity to hold it, didn't have a context for it based on these, inherited scripts and stories, and jettisoned from it, and then there becomes this, sort of middle space where we're
the comfort zone.
Well, and the shadow years, the work of really...
Oh, you're talking about the life journey.
Yeah. And then coming back to the qualities that generated those peak experiences or those glimpses of possibility, to where they're much more mature and more seasoned, and we're able to hold them, and we've expanded our capacity. So in this case, relationships can be more profound, and creativity, the creative process can be more exhilarating, and more sustainable, because in the past we recognized we couldn't hold it. But the glimpses, these moments in time where we just touch something, we've talked about this in terms of a kind of destiny, something that's floated around us our entire lives, and it's always there, similar to the poet. We have a poet in us. We all have an amazing story, an amazing narrative. We just keep telling the small tale. Right, we keep tracking the.
What are some of the resources that are available to us that allow us to become a bigger container for what aspects of self? The more people that we have, to use our metaphor of the bus, that we are a bus and we have all these different aspects of ourselves in this bus. Right. The more of those players that we are aware of and are in relationship with in that bus, the more freedom we have, and the more varied arenas of expression that we have, and not just, although certainly those aspects of self from the past, some of whom were very innocent and naive and beautiful and dreamy, and some of whom were also very hurt and experienced a lot of pain and are in arrested development there. As we love that and develop a relationship with that, those energies are freed. But also aspects of ourselves, archetypal selves, energies that we are estranged from. You and I spoke the other day about some of our knee-jerk patterns. And I confess to you, I realize that I don't have too much of a relationship with the part of me that you could call sort of the waif, for lack of another word. This one who feels helpless but is not afraid to ask for help. I don't have a lot of relationship with that. I am much more comfortable, habituated. My ego is much more comfortable if I just rely on the part that says, I can do it myself.
Right.
Just let me do it myself.
Right. So we've alienated that part of you.
And so
it doesn't get included.
my whole possibility, my whole reality, the whole, again, to use the metaphor, my whole dream that I'm dreaming is much smaller because there's a whole other area of expression it's a whole colors that are not on my palette.
Yeah. And so when you speak about resources, the developing the consciousness, the awareness of these various parts of us becomes a tremendous resource, or just to go straight to the language of source, that we have within us all the wisdom, all the poetry ever required. It's really a frequency game. Can we align the perspective, similar to what we were talking about with SARK? Can we align with the succulent worldview, the filter, in such a way where we see it all clearly and can line it up so that there's more and more to source, so nothing gets excluded. No part of our experience is bad.
And we're doing it consciously. The key to it.
No, in the past it was something I tripped on and then had these amazing experiences, and then I wanted to know the secret pill to have that. Right? I didn't want to say, okay, I'm willing to hold everything, so then that possibility becomes more realized, more real.
I think how you phrased it before is as good a definition as any I have ever heard of spirituality, which is to develop a conscious relationship with more and more aspects of the divine, of God, goddess, of all that is, however you hold it, in the ultimate recognition that you are one with all of that. And so you are connecting with self, more and more and more self. And because we have this structured imagination, we have these hand-me-down assessments of who we are and how we understand ourselves to be, that they are very specific. We live inside of that boundary energetically. And so if it was a dream that you're having every night, you may have lots of variation inside a certain set of themes, but it is not going to range too far off of those things because you're only dealing with a set amount of colors. We're looking to own more and more and more of the infinite in the awareness that is more and more of who we really are.
Well, and one of the ways that you and I have talked about doing this is really beginning to own what's showing up in our experience as ours. Not playing victim, not pointing to it saying it's happening.
Owning it's all ours.
It's all ours.
So you're saying whatever comes up, you're saying, that's
100%.
me. Oh, no, how could that possibly be me? Well,
right.
I don't really know how it is possibly me, but it starts with me being willing to suggest that it is some part of me that is being mirrored in, again, if this was a dream, it may be something that is unpleasant, but it is some part of my psyche that is being worked out there.
Yeah, we have no problem accepting that our subconscious is talking to us in the sleeping state by
Yes.
virtue of what appears. What you and I have suggested many times is the waking state's no different. That
Same.
what's appearing to us is that which is running that we're either aware of or unaware of, and to the degree we become aware of it, we can respond to it. Responsibility is the ability to respond, versus being the victim of it and being caught in this patterned storyline perception that's a loop, a closed loop. It's a closed system. It keeps repeating like a rerun. I'm watching Bonanza again and again and again. There's only 50 episodes, and I'm watching them again and again and again, acting like it's a new one. That's
Is that a new little joke?
little joke? Why haven't they remade Bonanza? No, there's good reason not to
There are very
remake
good
Bonanza.
reasons,
Yeah. But that's the point, is that at some moments I go, wow, it's, you've said before, we're not moved from I'm not my brother's keeper to I am my brother's keeper,
To I am my brother.
to I am my brother, that I am all that I see, at least in the way I'm perceiving.
I am that.
I am that.
That I am.
And then we can tap into the frequency that we want to generate and create and promote. That's where we start to get really, that's where things get really fun. And there's qualities in certain frequencies. Fun, for example, is one. We love to play. We bring that to this show and we play for an hour. I mean, that's a quality in the experience that you and I want to generate. And creative. We want to play at the edge of our own, limitations, see what's on the other side. That's when SARK was talking about the space of wondering, or I was talking about in the context of her doing it, right? She wondered enough for something to arrive in that space that matched up with what she wanted to create and generate in her world.
When I wonder, the edges, the boundaries of what I think I know about myself, what I hold about myself, they become blurred. I'm not holding them as rigidly, and they suddenly become permeable. And new insights, perceptions, and conceptions can begin to seep through, and I become more.
Loosen your grip on reality. That was the title we wanted for this show.
You see, we set out, we threw out a map, we forgot the map, and then we wandered over it and hit did we find the treasure?
The flow.
Dig here.
Dig here, that's right. Dig here. A poet,
Spot,
dig here.
Spot marks the X.
Yeah. Whatever it is that...
Wherever you are, dig.
That's the wisdom of today's show. Spence, I've totally lost track of time. How are we doing? We're gonna figure out where the heck we are. Oh, nice.
12 minutes more?
No,
fabulous.
no, 3. That's
I like my version of that better. 12
We're
minutes.
extending.
12 minutes more.
But loosening our grip on reality. One of the things at the very beginning where we recognize where processing as a valuable tool to open us up and explore and allow and has its sort of shadow side where it becomes a way of distracting and avoiding. So, I know I'm tracking back, but, we have 3 minutes. So it's something I wanted to cover because I felt like we touched upon it. But it's really valuable.
There is the line we can hide in processing.
Yep.
We can use it a way to nobilize procedure and hide there. And on the flip side of that, we can also give it to our negative ego, who says, well, you don't need to process. And then we do premature,
transcendence.
So there is a place where we have to look very closely. Am I choosing to shortcut my processing as a way to avoid responsibility, or am I choosing to over-process as a way to avoid responsibility?
And I love, again, language we used in the past, but the idea it's a dance, that there's an ebb and flow.
You may want to just, in the last minutes, you may want to refresh for our audience exactly what we mean by processing.
Well, so these are the tools, not technology, by the way, because you and I have both said that language is a control game, and we're more interested in the mystery and the unknown versus the known, and trying to crunch everything down to a process, right, or a technology,
or a technique,
but the dance element is the ability to flow in and out of it. By process, we're just talking about skills. We're talking about, some of the fundamental principles of whatever the consciousness.
I guess you could say of identifying which aspect of me in the bus is driving the bus.
Right.
So and very briefly,
this is around self-awareness. And go ahead.
There's recognizing what my thoughts and feelings are. There is acknowledging that, wow, that's a part of me that is maybe old or maybe very young, or that is suddenly driving the bus. There's forgiving that,
right?
Saying, okay, without judging it, just letting it go. And then there is releasing it, which means really letting it go. We joke amongst ourselves that so often we don't want to forget where we buried the hatchet. That's not for, people rarely want to forget where they buried the hatchet. That's not forgiveness.
Right. Because you find yourself.
That's a recipe for indebtedness.
Well,
that's
we're back into keeping score. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So when you bury the hatchet, you bury the hatchet.
Yeah,
you don't know where it is.
Let it go.
That's releasing. And then that opens you to assert from your highest awareness who is going to be driving your bus. That is processing. That's what I mean by
in
processing.
Service to a really juicy or succulent sense of possibility, then everything begins to align. This is one of the things in the same conversation. as Barnett was speaking of in the surfing, having that sight set above the water and seeing ahead of where we want to go really becomes a way of recontextualizing everything that's happened in the past and how we work through things in service to that. So again, when we started with talking about our wives and the practices that we designated, the resistance is also part of the process, but we never lose sight of where we want to go.
That's the distinction between people sometimes say, well, you're not in the moment, you're not in the now. Well, if I'm surfing, being in the moment, in the now, is having a sense of the vision of what is possible. That is what keeps me in the flow and keeps me in the now. If I was to blindside myself and look straight down, that's dangerous.
Yeah, what people are talking about is the if-then.
There's no balance.
Is the if-then. If I get this, then I'll be happy. So there's this whole futurizing thing that's not so helpful. We're not talking about that. Hey, you know what? We've run out of time.
I think we're out of time.
Yeah, I know. I felt like I was just racing.
We thank you all for listening. We invite you all back with us again next time. And in the meantime, please check out our podcasts at www.cuttingedgeconsciousness.com. And until next week, goodbye from Cutting Edge Consciousness.